This is All About the Song.
Welcome to the 137th episode of All About the Song. I am your host, Michael McDonnell, and thank you for joining us. On the podcast today, we have a fantastic guest, Stuart Chatwood of the band The Tea Party, who have just released a new song, Summertime, that's doing extremely well. Now, if you're around my age, I'm 32. I grew up watching Much Music, and when I first got into Much Music, it was at the age of 10. Temptation was one of the biggest, if not biggest, songs on Much Music. The band was absolutely massive. They've continued a career till 2005 and then reunited in 2011. Stuart is also the composer for Ubisoft games like Prince of Persia, Warrior Within, The Two Thrones, The Fallen King. And it was really excellent to talk to such an accomplished musician and composer about, releasing a single in 2021 during a pandemic with a band living across the world. And I got to talk to him about the origin story of the Tea Party. And I saw them play at Sarsstock, which was a huge moment in my life. It was a massive concert if you're not a Toronto native. We had a pandemic previous to the one we're currently in, SARS, and we had a huge celebration where the Rolling Stones and AC/DC, the Tea Party, the Flaming Lips, and many more performed at Downsview Park. There was 500,000 people there. So it was an incredible experience. I was 15. It was like, we'd all just got guitars in the neighborhood, and we lived along that strip. So we saw the stages being erected over the course of the summer. It was, absolutely fantastic. And it was the only time I think in my lifetime that I'll leave a concert of 500,000 people and walk home in 10 minutes time. It was so cool. It was great to talk to him about that. He also talks about the Tea Party opening up for Page and Plant of Led Zeppelin fame at the Forum in Montreal. I will say that this conversation was done over Zoom, and we had a couple of Zoom difficulties. And to let the curtain up a little bit too, before this interview, I was watching the Toronto Maple Leafs play, and I saw that John Tavares hit where he got hit in the head with the knee, and it just took the wind out of my sails. But we had a couple of Zoom technicalities. So just so you know, in the second part, there's a little bit of latency. So Stuart wasn't exactly getting what I was saying at that time, which is no problem because he powered through with some absolutely incredible stories. Zoom is what it is. We all know now that there is sometimes a bit of communication technologies and it's not as optimal as it can be. But I mean, what a lifesaver all in all. So stick with us through this episode. The stories that Stuart tells are absolutely fantastic. Be sure to listen to the new song Summertime. And there is a tour coming up featuring a bunch of other bands, including Sloan. I think he mentioned Big Wreck. It's the Saints and Sinners tour, and they're going to be announcing some new dates for that soon. The Tea Party will be performing with that at Casino Rama and all over Canada. You are watching All About the Songs on the Sounds Like Songs network. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications button. If you are, we post new episodes every Tuesday, video and audio. Audio is at wherever you listen to your podcasts. So here we are. Episode 137 of All About the Song, featuring Stuart Chatwood of The Tea Party. Congratulations on the new single, Summertime. What's it like to have a new single out right now? And a fantastic one at that.
Oh, thanks. It's exciting. I mean, we're getting initial reports that the single is doing really well. And it feels like 1997. So how old were you and when were you born?
Well, it's funny that you said that because knowing that I was going to do this interview, the Tea Party have come up twice in 2 days, unbeknownst to them, knowing that I was going to speak to you. We were talking about Big Shiny Tunes 2 and how monumental an album that was. I got it for my birthday just before Christmas. And last night we were going through the album trying to figure out if we could name all the songs off the top of our head, it being the best-selling album in Canadian history. And
wow, that's really cool.
when we got to going through the list, we're like, okay, Prodigy. Okay, now we have Blur song 2. And then it was Tea Party. And everyone was like, man, that was a great song. And, for me, 1997 was Much Music era. Like, that's just when we got, listening to all that kind of stuff. So, it was absolutely huge.
So instrumental in our success for sure. All the videos. We just made a lyric video, but even including those, we probably made 28 videos. So,
oh my goodness, that's
quite an
crazy.
extensive. Yeah, I know. Some of them ranging in price. I think some of them were like $200,000 videos too. So,
well,
the budgets used to be
massive budgets. And when you watch the video for Temptation, you look at it and you really do see the production value. You get to see the amount of money that was funneled into the idea of a single and the success behind it, and you are obviously on the beneficiary side of it in a sense.
Yeah, we were. We're finding now that you didn't need the huge budget. All you need is a good idea.
Yes.
And and it's nice actually to see some of these YouTube videos that were made for the sake of making the video. And I think of the proliferation of film school graduates too. In the last 20 years, there are all these people wandering around the streets with, knowledge of f-stops and apertures and all these sorts of scientific minutiae of making movies and, lighting techniques. And it's nice to see, it put to use from time to time.
Well, also, even if you're on your journey in that regard, to be able to take out an iPhone and, already be in like 1080p or 4K or
oh my gosh,
you can just you have this ability to start and be like, wow, this looks really good. Whereas when there was so much gear involved, you had to be you had to know so much, you had to go through so much schooling, and if you were a camera operator, like that's what you did. If you played the bass guitar or you were a musician, the thought of being able to direct a music video right off the hop would have been so far-fetched, and no one would ever have given you the chance.
Yeah, it's so liberating just to be able to make a video for creative purposes. Because back in the day, 80% of the whole process was the scientific and how to actually capture the image and capture the idea and edit the idea. Now it's just like, oh, I have a good idea. Of course, we know that we have to do lighting and all that, but it's just nice that barrier has come down and you can focus more on the creativity, side of things now.
Yep.
On our first video, we edited on tape, and like anytime you make an edit, and it, let's rewind the tapes. And, so it was like a very time consuming and not too much different from making records back in the day on tape. So we actually, here's an interesting story. We made Sister Awake in Los Angeles at Henson Studios. It was called A&M Studios back then.
Okay.
And I think Charlie Chaplin, it was United Artists originally that owned the lot, but amazing recording studio there, one of the best in the world. And Ed Stasium co-produced the record with us, so he got a killer deal on the place. And it's a studio of four, a complex of 4 studios inside. And we were in there one time mixing a song with Roy Harper singing over our music. And in the next studio, Pearl Jam had Neil Young singing over their music. And I was chatting with Neil Young in the coffee room, getting an espresso, and, we're just chatting. He heard me playing Mellotron. He's like, hey, it sounds kind of cool in there. What are you guys working on? And at the time, he had this massive fight about digital, and he hated digital because, granted, a lot of albums at the time were just dumps onto 16-bit CDs at horrible, concern. No concern was placed upon the sound quality. It was just like, get that thing on a CD to resell it to people, Yeah. So he heard me on the Mellotron. He's like, I love the analog stuff, I didn't have the heart to tell him, though. And they have a Mellotron there at the studio, but one of the notes is wonky. And a Mellotron, do you know what a Mellotron is?
Yeah.
It's a tape machine married to a keyboard. So every key you press plays a tape loop. But if the tape loop gets damaged, your machine needs to be serviced. And unfortunately, one of the important notes played like this beautiful cello, like, so I couldn't use that. So we actually got a Proteus, like this digital console, like this little unit in to play the sound. But I didn't have the heart to tell Neil Young that actually it's digital.
Well, I don't know if
my story started here, though. Sorry, this is a run-on sentence.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
But Ed Stasium started as a tape operator in the late 60s, early 70s. So he knew how to run a tape machine. So setting it up, and when you edited back then, you actually got a razor blade out and you cut the tape, irreparably damaging the tape. Sorry, glass of wine there.
No.
Abominable. No. But that song, we synced up 3 tape machines. So we had 72 tracks at our disposal for that song, Sister Wake, because it was kind of an epic, like 3 songs in one.
Yeah.
But we recorded, I think, 3 takes. And we were noobs at the time. We didn't know everything about studio recording. And we were just, we record the takes, and he'd like, all right, come inside. And we listened back to the takes, and, we picked out 2 or 3 great moments in the drums in particular. And he took the tape off and he just spread it out, and he marked it with like a wax pencil, and then got the razor blade and like cutting the tape. And we're like, whoa. And like, he's like moving the tape heads back and forth, like, whoa, 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 finding the attack of the kick drum, because that's the first thing he's hearing on like the track that he has soloed. And so he spliced together like the drum take from 3 different takes. I mean, nowadays that's done in Pro Tools.
Yes.
But back then, like, such science had to be known by the engineer and by the producer. And, it helps that the band can understand the science behind it too, to make informed decisions.
I started recording, my first recording experience was in 2003. And that was when pretty much all the tape stuff was put into, some sort of locker or something like that. And so it's always been, reading books. I'm a big fan of Jeff Emmerich, who did a lot of the engineering on the Beatles and Abbey Road. Yeah, and talking about there's just such an art form with that process to recording, and it never really seemed like there was a ton of happy accidents, but also the idea of unlimitedness was not a thing. Like, you had your box and you had to push from within, because you did, even though 72 tracks is massive, it's still a limitation.
Massive, yeah. The Beatles, you'd keep bouncing down, which meant, though, you had to be so clean and pristine on your original recordings, because by the time it made it to final mix, it might have been bounced down 3 times. Yeah. So, and the drum, you're not miking up, 22 mics on the drum kit, it's probably like maybe 8 that are like bussed down and grouped together and then coming down into like two tracks. So pretty incredible. So.
I love listening to like Sgt. Pepper's, the 4 tracks, and hearing like what they put on each track and how they had to dedicate to what each thing, guitar and then orchestra, and then you'd hear people smoking in the background, and you'd hear all these different sounds, and it just makes this like massive thing. It's just so wonderful.
We lived across in Detroit growing up, in just the Motown studio, the Motown house, which had the studio inside. Just incredible that what was done in like not a massive, A&M Studios, in contrast to that, is a beautifully treated acoustic room. We Are the World was recorded there, they could pick any studio in the world for that, but just the Motown sound, just everything's about, okay, you back up, you play a little quieter, not so much on those cymbals there, okay? Like everything was like a performance, it really was a performance. Not only like the notes and the bending and the vibrato, but the actual volume, so, yeah.
Growing up in Windsor, being across the street from, or, across the bridge from Detroit, was that the big musical influence for you, at least?
Massive. We were not Canadians, I'm proud Canadian, of course, but culturally, we were Americans, no doubt about it. Our heroes were, like the Alice Coopers, the Iggy Pops, the MC5s, the Bob Segers. But the rock radio there, they loved Led Zeppelin. They loved British blues music, so the Deep Purples, by the age, I don't know, how old are you in grade 8? Like age 12 maybe, or something like that. And I knew all the 500 rock songs, and those 500 songs that keep getting played again, whether it's Boston or whatever, for a while there, if I heard Boston, I'm like, change the channel. Yeah. Nowadays with Boston, I'm like, all right, you play it. It's nostalgic, I guess. And it's a pristine recording for the time too, of course. But it just made us well-versed. So when New Wave came along, and I was born in England myself, so I would go back to England in the summer times and see the culture over there and the music over there. And, I came back one summer as a mod. I loved the Jam and, the British beat bands, from the late 70s, early 80s, all the New Wave stuff. because we knew the rock stuff, we felt comfortable moving to let's listen to new stuff in high school. But then at the end of high school, it was like, let's get back into rock. You rediscover the deeper cuts off the Jimi Hendrix records. And you're like, oh, why is Castles Made of Sand an incredible song, And you start, and also your playing gets better. So, you're playing all the songs, you're like, okay, let's put on Led Zeppelin 1 and play every single song, with your instrument, along. And you really get to know the nucleus and, the inside out of the song, like where it was started. And, a lot of those songs are so well documented too, that, you can dig into the history, especially being a performer. I mean, being an expert music listener where all you do is listen to music your whole life, that does give you a criteria to review things, of course. But being a musician, I think, gives you a different perspective, perhaps. And what's your instrument yourself? I mean,
I'm a bass player as well.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, that, John Entwistle is driving those Who songs or whatever, or, Paul McCartney's quite a good musician, when it gets right down to it,
Especially on the songs he didn't write.
Yeah.
With listening music in Windsor, getting that Detroit flavor, learning music, wanting to be a musician, how come you selected bass, or was that your initial instrument?
To be honest, we were in a band in Toronto. I was the singer, rhythm guitar player. Jeff Martin was invited to join that band as the lead guitarist because that band wanted to cover a Jimi Hendrix song, and I wasn't about to sing and attempt my Jimi Hendrix. That would have been very bad. So Jeff joined that band, and that band kind of we had to have a 6-pack each to get along with each other. It just dissolved, we were not meant for each other. There was a chemistry involved. So the Tea Party formed, and there was no question, Jeff is an amazing guitar player. A lot of people aren't aware, but he took classical guitar at the University of Windsor, and, we lived together, and, he was still learning the Bach pieces there. So there's no way, if it's a 3-piece, that I was going to play guitar. So right. I did shift over to bass at that point, but I took a really authentic approach to it. We lived in an apartment together in Toronto, Jeff Martin and myself, and he played guitar every night, basically putting on side A of an album and then playing the entire album. So whether it was the whole Zeppelin catalog or the Hendrix catalog, which is obviously pretty short.
Yeah.
Myself, I did the same thing with bass, and I just decided, I already knew how to play with a pick. So it's I'm going to play everything with my fingers, 6 months, 4 hours a day. So, and, like yourself, I'm sure you put your 10,000 hours and you just get to a plateau there where it's okay, I could go into any room now and someone could just shout a bass line out to me, and, I could do a reasonable facsimile of it. I'm not going to do a solo over it, but, you just get to a point where the knowledge of the instrument is not a hindrance anymore. So, and then you have to practice a little harder because you might have a couple of beers, and that brings you down a lot.
Yes, I learned that if you were going to drink a beer, you should practice with a beer. And it was...
there you go.
Because the first time, that's not what happened. The first time we got a little rider and someone was like, we could give you $20 each, or we could give you guys a 2-4. We were like, well, I think it makes sense to get the 2-4, and then you have a couple beers, you go on stage, you're like, whoa, this feels funny, and
yeah.
with
you played in Sudbury too, I see.
Yes, I have played in Sudbury. Oh my God,
Townhouse.
I love the Townhouse. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
all
fantastic.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. No, we slept in the Townhouse. That's how indie we were.
You know what's funny?
They had a band room in the basement.
Yes, so. They still have a band room in the basement.
And their towels were cut up, long drawn underwear. It was oh my God. So someone's thermal underwear from their hockey.
Oh my God.
It's let's cut it up and give it to the bands. Yeah.
Well, the band I played in refused to stay there. We decided to drive home, but we got stuck behind the snowplows. So we drove from Sudbury to Toronto at about 40 kilometers an hour for 8 hours. I was thinking man, that basement room must be good right now to stay there. So
well, it was warm down there. Yeah. Actually, what we would do is we would try and get a luxury hotel, but just get one room.
Right.
And I remember we were in Banff, and it's like, we got to stay at the Banff Springs, And how much? Okay, we can't afford that. But we could afford it because we put 9 people in the room. And we had two double beds. So we pulled the double beds off.
Yeah.
So some people slept on the box springs and some people slept on the mattresses. And then I guess there was a couch maybe in the double room, but everyone can use the pool. So, and then, it was a good scenario. I remember Yvonne from Ultrasound on Queen Street. So it was kind of like the Horseshoe Ultrasound, but she was used to indie bands and, nothing better for an indie band than the promoter to say, would you like a free place to stay tonight? A nice bedroom and all that, even if it's at someone's house, pre-COVID, of course.
Yes.
But she asked us and I told her, oh, we're okay. We're at the Royal York. And she was like, whoa, rock stars, So I think she told the story to someone who was writing a book too. So it was pretty funny.
Oh,
so we have
wild.
a good laugh anytime I see her. So
with the success of the band and obviously not starting out successful, what was the gradual climb like? And did you see kind of light at the end of the tunnel right from the beginning?
Well, we had a plan. So, that's important to have a plan. And we believed in ourselves. And we did it for ourselves. So we didn't care what the audience thought too much. We were stage fright and all that sort of stuff, which perhaps we don't have anymore. At my age, I really don't care what people think because, there's plenty of other people that love the music or, I'm not really doing it to get your applause. I'm performing for you that evening to entertain you. But so in the beginning, you've got to believe in yourselves. And a lot of people are going to tell you, change this, change that. But it's much better to fail with your own ideas than to fail with someone else's ideas. So we stuck to our guns. We produced ourselves. So we knew if it was going to fail, it was our fault. When you do that, you kind of back yourself into a corner because, you've told a lot of people, no, we're not doing it your way. We're doing it our way. And it's rewarding and it makes you work harder, but it's rewarding when it starts to work. And, thankfully for us, we just had the right amount of people that believed in us. We got lucky. Floria Sigismondi, video director, she just happened to be starting. And actually I knew her before she came, I knew her like maybe 3 or 4 years before she actually worked with us because we'd see each other upstairs at Lee's Palace. There was a pool room upstairs at Lee's. So, and I thought her name was Gloria though. So when EMI set us up with the director, Floria Sigismondi, we knocked on her door and she opened the door and Floria has amazing eyes, like unmistakable, like one of a kind. I saw her and I was like, Gloria. Because, it was loud rock bar, right?
Yeah.
What's your name? Gloria. Hi, Gloria. So that's how that happened. But, she went on to work with David Bowie and, Marilyn Manson, everyone else. And, she was a visionary. She was a true artist. She had a great aesthetic. She had a good eye for things. So she elevated our video production and it enabled us to get on Much Music, which was life-changing, we probably could have predicted, how the band would have worked out. Even though we were a great live band and, we kind of proved that by going to Australia where there was no Much Music and there was no support, but we started with nothing and we grew to sell out crowds within 2 weeks.
Wow.
On a Monday night, 600 people tried to come see us in a 500-seat club, I remember. On a Monday night at the ticket price started at like, $5 and then it kept going up. But, so that was very, you felt vindicated when that happened in Australia for sure. And I think it kind of helps things too in Canada, when you succeed in another country and all the Canadians that have been told the story about, oh, you should play the Tea Party at your radio station because they're really good. And it's like, yeah, we've got enough Canadian bands, thanks. But then they read about us doing so well in Australia and Australians loving us. All of a sudden they're like, well, that's our band. That's our Tea Party,
It's an inherent Canadian tradition to like your own once others enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to see the Tragically Hip move beyond that, People love their music and, they play their songs, without question on Canadian radio now. But, the single just came out this week and we're probably getting more initial plays out of the box than we have since 1997. So, I mean, maybe people have moved on from hating us and they actually like us again. So who knows? But
Well, with the band, I know that you guys cited creative differences when you broke up. And you have reunited and been reunited in a sense for a decade now.
yeah.
Getting together to work on new music in the sense that you live all over the world. How do you have like, is it the old feelings that come back, or is there a new appreciation of music?
I think William de Kooning, the artist from America, he's like maybe Dutch or German, but he's like a modern artist. He said, you have to change to stay the same,
Right.
you know? So we would have to have changed a lot to stay the same. I mean, we've basically been taken along for a ride where our wisdom has increased, our knowledge has increased. So to deny that, to try and go back to the naivete of the initial writing sessions, recording sessions, it's not possible. It's not going to happen, you know? And unfortunately, the naivete enables you to make mistakes and make bold statements without worrying about consequences. So perhaps there's a little more trepidation, a little more thought that's put into the creative process that sort of hobbles it somewhat, you know? It's not as free. But that is offset by the wisdom and the knowledge you have. So the music evolves, the music changes. I mean, a lot of people want us to rewrite The Edges of Twilight or Transmission, and, you know, it would be completely preposterous, and it would be posing. It would be, you know, an act if we were to do that. It would be a cover band, really, you know, covering ourselves. So with that said, though, I mean, the Summertime lyrics are quite lighthearted, you know, and, you know, Led Zeppelin had Dancing Days, you know. So, I mean, that's kind of how we're looking at it. We wrote this song in 2019 before the pandemic. And right when we wrote the riff, Jeff Martin started singing, summertime, summertime, you know. So he had the sort of the little nugget, the lyrical idea to write about something like that. And when you spend your whole career, you know, sort of like trying to like drop literary references and, you know, make your songs perhaps a bit deeper, and, you know, purposely to the point where you'll include a word that needs to be looked up by a fan or whatever. It's nice to sort of vary that and to write something that is just sort of a, you know, it's a romp. It's a walk down memory lane. We have a lot of memories about summertimes after being in a band for 30 years, you know. The Neil Young Harvest Moon album, we used to go to sleep to that every night when we used to sleep in the same room, you know. It was like there'd be noise and it's like, put on Harvest Moon, you know. Everyone would fall asleep then. So some of the memories, I like to talk about how the song, it's kind of like encapsulates the key to Bala, you know. Like, I don't know if have you played up there at
I've
Bala?
not played, but I've been. And
Yeah.
it's incredible. It's magnificent to be in cottage country and to have this venue just along the road that everyone
Yeah, like
goes to.
Sam Roberts, Sloan, I mean, 5440, you know, like a certain tier of Canadian rock band will play there. And it's like a pleasure to get to see that quality band there. You've been out on the lake or suntanning all day, drinking beer. You head off and you hear some good rock music at nighttime. And just, you know, it's a very happy memory. So I guess, you know, Jeff Martin in his lyrics, he's trying to capture, you know, just that happiest Canadiana moment. You know, he lives in Australia in Byron Bay now, so there's a part of him that misses Canada. And, you know, we wrote a lot of Inner Zone Mantras and, you know, Walking Wounded that was on our Tangents hits record on Stony Lake in Ontario, outside of Peterborough. So there's definitely some cottage vibes in our DNA, that's for sure. So, and we covered Bob Cajun.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's fantastic. Now, I want to ask you about a gig that was very monumental for me. It was done about 5 minutes from where I grew up, and it was Sarsstock, in which you performed at. Do you remember that? How was that for you? Was that as obscene and wild as it was for me to experience it as a viewer?
Yeah, everything about it. I mean, we took a train out to the venue for our sound check the day before. And then on the day, like there's a VIA station that's not far from there.
Yeah.
So it was decided that, you know, if we take the trains, there's no traffic. Like, keep in mind, this is all engineered by Michael Cole, the amazing promoter.
Yeah.
And actually, well, Michael gave all the bands. This just sits in my studio because where else are you going to put this? But it's just like a
that's a
Toronto
great
Raw. I don't know if this is that backwards for you or is
No, that's right side. That's so great. Oh, that was so cool.
So I think we got on the same line just after Justin Timberlake, and yeah.
Well, I remember Jeff Martin saying something
We're above the
about
Flaming Lips, but I love
Yeah.
Wayne, so I wouldn't hold that against him.
Well, I remember you guys saying something like, "If you've got it, spark it up," and the whole
That was
place.
Dan Aykroyd. Dan Aykroyd
Was
said
it?
that.
That's okay. And the whole place. I was 15.
But we asked him to say that actually.
Oh man, I was 15. It was like, I lived by Downsview Park, so every day we would be bike riding across. We'd be watching these stages get built, and
It was monumental.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it was so cool.
Well, prior to the Rolling Stones going on stage, we had played to more people at a ticketed event than they ever had in North
Really?
America anyway. I think they played some communist rally in Milan, Italy. Check Wikipedia. But, it's just kind of neat to think about things like that. One interesting thing backstage, though, we did like a group photo with the Stones and AC/DC and everything. And the Stones, before they went on stage, they met us all. And, it was like, we got to meet them. They can't go on stage without us meeting them. Keith Richards came over to me and he tripped on his way over. I had to catch him, and I kind of saved the show, because he's quite old.
Yeah.
And when he falls hard. But it gave me a really unique perspective of his hair and all the stuff that's in, he has like everything braided in there, like little dice and things like that, like stitched in. So I don't know how often he would take, I think he takes baths. I don't even think he takes showers. So, but it was great to chat with all of them though. So awesome.
With
the show itself though, I've only been nervous twice in my career. And the first time we played with Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page, Robert Plant at the Forum, the old Forum in Montreal.
Yeah.
And, I just had to center myself. I'm like, okay, we're going out there. And, our road manager said, Jimmy Page is in front of Jeff Martin. Robert Plant is in front of you, Stuart. They actually came out to watch our show. So Robert Plant had set up a table and he had a teapot with a teacup. Not because we're the tea party. He just likes to drink tea before he goes and sings for 2.5 hours, right? But so they watched 5.5 of our 6 songs. And then, I just had to go down to a little ball just to center myself before going on. But the show was amazing. We played great and we got a standing ovation from the amazing Montreal crowds. You've played Montreal, I'm assuming, right?
I have, yeah.
But just the people there, they have rhythm, they love music. So backstage, the manager, Bill Kirbishley, came and knocked. He said, Jimmy and Robert want to see you before you leave, because typically the support band plays and then they get to the next town. We had no intention of doing that. Actually, we did play Detroit the following night, but we left at 2 a.m. So we went to Jimmy Page's room and, he was just talking about the violin bow and just different things about the set. Then Robert said, I love the whole set, but that 5th song, you went to the blues. I don't think that's necessary. You should do the world music thing. You guys are best at that. The blues, we kind of covered the blues, you're not going to get any new things out of that, I think if you do stuff with the world music and the rock, you're really heading somewhere. So we said our goodbyes, got our pictures. And then during their set, they came and got us and they asked, can you guys stand side stage to watch the band? It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Afterwards, it's like they finished. Jimmy Page motions to Jeff Martin to come over and when you walk down the tunnel back into your dressing rooms in an arena, Jimmy Page is with Jeff Martin. And Jeff Burrows and myself are just watching Jimmy and Jeff walk out through the tunnel. It's and Jeff Martin is the biggest Jimmy Page fan. So afterwards, they were like, don't go anywhere. We'll go to a bar and the band might show up. So sure enough, Page and Plant have not been going out for drinks afterwards. They show up at the bar afterwards. And Jimmy motions to Jeff. Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
I've got this little camo app that's running on my phone here.
Oh,
it's
yeah, no worries.
But so Jimmy motions to Martin to come sit beside him, and everyone's trying to get an autograph and a picture. It's like at a fancy Italian restaurant that we're at this time. And Jimmy and Jimmy and Jeff chatted for probably 90 minutes. and they exchanged addresses. And Jimmy said, "Come stay with me in London," and I'll continue that story in a second.
Okay.
But I'm back with my friends at the back, and Robert comes by and he separates my group of 6 friends. He's like, "Stuart, where's your drummer Jeff? I've got to go. I'm not as young as I used to be in my throat, I'm like, "Oh, Robert, Jeff's at the back. Nice hanging out with you again." He's like, "All right, Stuart, good luck with everything." And my friends are like, "Robert Plant knows your name?"
Yeah.
I'm just like, "Yeah, he does." And actually, just to confirm that too, my sister-in-law works at a dealership that sells Volkswagens and a few other cars in Birmingham, England. And she got a call from Bob. And this guy was looking for a used VW for his son. And he came in, and it was Robert Plant. And she said, "Have you heard of my brother-in-law's band, the Tea Party?" He's like, "Yes, I've got all the records." So it was kind of nice to hear from her. Because, you tell people these stories and you're like, whatever, they've never heard of you. You're just making that up. They're dead now. You can make up whatever story you want, right? Like for some artists, not those guys.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was that. So he confirmed, he knew about the Tea Party. He loved us. But Jimmy Page invited Jeff Martin to come stay with him in London at Tower House. So Jeff was over there with his wife, and Jimmy was married to a young Brazilian lady at the time, Jamela, I think it was. And Jeff had the demo of Transmission, our 3rd record. And, the evening they were just, Jeff was drinking beers and vodka, and Jimmy was drinking cider all night. And Jeff was, after an hour in, he's like, "Would you like to hear my new demos?" So he's playing the stuff off Transmission, Transmission and Temptation and everything. And Jimmy's like air guitaring to it. He's getting like right into the music. So Jeff's looking over his shoulder at his I think I'm not sure, wife, I think, at the time, but he's just like, "Can you believe this? Jimmy Page is air guitaring to our music."
Wow. What a full
So that
circle
night
moment.
he slept upstairs in the Jack and the Beanstalk room. And it's a room that has a single oak tree that's being brought inside and carved and then shellacked and everything. But it's like the Jack and the Beanstalk tale told in a sculpture. And this thing, the tree has 2 eyes that stare down at you as you're trying to get to sleep in your bed.
Oh my gosh.
So 2 a.m, Jeff tries to go to the bathroom, and it's a massive house if you've seen Tower House, and he doesn't know where the bathroom is. All the doors are closed. So he starts opening doors, and he opens one door, and it's Jimmy's closet of his stage gear. So there's the wizard uniform, the stormtrooper uniform, all these things. And he's like, "I better just close this door."
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no kidding.
But from then on, like Jimmy Page would fax us in Montreal, like, "How's the record going?" Signed The Wizard. And Jeff would write back, signed The Apprentice. And we had like a fax communication with Jimmy Page going back and forth. So it was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's amazing. Well,
But
speaking
then, then you cut to SARS and we get to play with AC/DC and the Stones. And it's like, check. Like I never thought, probably when I was 15, I might have made this gigantic list, which is hilarious, right? Of goals, and probably I would have done better in my life if I kept that up where, you make the goal list and all that and you try and adhere to it. But I think on the goal was like to play with some of these bands and to play in front of 100,000 people. I didn't have play in front of 500,000 though. So that was something else and unexpected. So, and I'm so glad you were there because it was a real moment in Canadian history. So for sure.
It was a moment in Canadian history, and there had to have been more than just me that walked away going, "This is the coolest thing ever. We're going to do this forever." One of my friends has started to play to audiences of that size that we were there with. And it was like, that was just it was so massive because we had never seen that many people and so many people to hear those songs. And I mean, Angus Young, like that guitar, like when it started, it was, we were so far back.
AC/DC stole the show. It's unquestionable, I mean, their music is engineered for stadiums. Though.
Yes.
Like just their footage from Argentina, from their concert there from 2009. It is the best, live. Just recorded so perfectly, and the audience in Argentina is just over the top. But their music, just with the simplicity, like the perfect and beautiful simplicity of the stuff. It's written so well for that purpose, and it's like hearing something the way it was meant to be heard. It's so incredible. Actually, Mike Fraser, who engineered some of our stuff, he has worked on their prior 2 or 3 records out here in Vancouver. Some great studios, I should know, in Vancouver. But Angus's sound is, he only uses like a 6-foot guitar cable, maybe a 10-foot guitar cable, but that gets plugged right into the amp. And there's nothing, messing with the, the cable at all in terms of interference or, electrical load or anything like that. So
no effects pedals either.
Yeah, like they'll add some like sends probably when they're doing the mixing and all that, but it's just like a very pure, they're going for that purity, and it sounds like it, and they pull it off. So.
Well, there was a bass player of a Canadian band who wrote an article in a Canadian musician that came out like about 6 months after, and at their rehearsal space, they kept hearing this amazing like tribute band playing Back in Black and Thunderstruck, and like every time they'd go, every day it would be like Back in Black, Thunderstruck, Back in Black, Thunderstruck, Highway to Hell. And then he's like, man, this band like kills. And the whole article was about the fact that it actually was AC/DC rehearsing. Yeah. And he walked away saying like, wow, if AC/DC after all this time is sitting there playing Back in Black, getting ready for the show, like that means that every single one of us, should be practicing our songs and keeping in check. If they're still doing it, so should we, in a sense.
Actually, we have a similar story. Maybe not AC/DC, but we were in Manchester at the Boardwalk, which is a club there, and I think it was the Boardwalk. It might be called something else. Very similar name. This is going back to 1994, though. And there's rehearsal studios there in the complex, and Oasis were there rehearsing their songs. So, yeah. And they were breaking at that point.
Now, I know that we're in COVID. I know that things are very rough, and I know that your band live all around the world, but you've got this big single. You have this, whole new kind of euphoria around the band. Are we going to, when things are safe, will we see the band out on the road anytime soon?
We have a big tour that was planned for 2020. It got rescheduled twice, and this is the third rescheduling now in November. Or maybe the second reschedule, I guess. The third time dates have gone on sale, so second reschedule. But that's going across Canada. Unfortunately, it was supposed to go all the way to Newfoundland, but we're stopping now, I think, in Montreal, perhaps, which is a shame because we love playing the East Coast for sure. But that is us, the Headstones, Moist, and Big Rack, who have since been replaced with Sloan. So it's kind of like a throwback to Can Rock. It's called Saints and Sinners, and I think there's 13 shows now. In Toronto, I think the show actually is not in Toronto. It's in the Casino Rama. Yeah, so unfortunately, there's not a closer show for Toronto people. I know there is Montreal shows that are closer to the city of Montreal. I think if you do Saints and Sinners tour in a search, you'll find all the dates. Or if you go on our website and look for tour, you'll find the dates. But that is now scheduled for November. And, we're getting our vaccinations ourselves. And, hopefully we'll see other countries open up their concerts before we do. So people can feel confident about coming back out again and feeling safe about seeing a live show again. And I mean, it's going to feel so good for everyone, I'm sure, like there's going to be this epiphany for everyone and this celebration, that, I know for a lot of people, live music is one of the things they miss most. I mean, we all miss going out to restaurants and, but, just being amongst your peers and your music fans and, just hearing someone, vibrate those instruments going through you, it's a good feeling.
Well, I know that there'll be a while till that happens. And thank you so much for doing this, Stuart. I really appreciate it. This is a true honor. I've been following your band for almost 20 years now. And
thanks.
you were a really big influence watching on Much Music and seeing a band that could just, absolutely crush. And it's,
I did want to mention before I go, though, I am doing video game soundtracks. And
I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah. Darkest Dungeon 2 is going to be coming out later this year for people. It's all me on the soundtrack. So, and it's been a great experience because, the games, they reach a much broader audience than the music does. And it's nice to have, video game people introduced to the Tea Party and vice versa. I know a lot of Tea Party fans have been like, I hate video games, but I'll check it out, and they're like, oh, wow, I enjoyed that. So
And the
it's
Prince
a
of
different
Persia
challenge.
series
And,
is huge.
but yeah, but so that'll be coming out later this year. I'm working on that right now. I probably have drums. There you
Oh,
go.
that's fantastic.
I'm doing a drum track right now.
Well, I think that's such a cool way that you've, integrated your musical experience going from, a, traditional rock style band touring and, diversifying yourself and going into this, this new medium. And I think, video games are the number one selling piece of entertainment at this point. And
Yeah.
you've contributed music to, some absolutely massive video game series.
I've been a horseshoe stuck up somewhere, I think.
Well,
yeah, Darkest Dungeon, it was serendipitous. I met the developer on the street in Vancouver, and he showed me some artwork, and it was like Hieronymus Bosch looking stuff with like the Plague Doctor. And I'm just like, I write music, and I like this artwork. We should work together. And it worked out great. So luckily,
incredible.
the game, the narration, the artwork, and the gameplay, everything worked out, and just it's been a hit. And it's so cool, great for the Vancouver economy, and just the artists here, and they've got a great team at Red Hook Software. So the creators, Chris and Tyler, they're great guys. So it's a lot of fun.
Until we see you back on the road, other than doing the soundtracks, what's next for you?
So we're in May. Really, the soundtrack that's going to involve, prep until like September, October, and then I'll be getting ready for the tour. So I do have ambient music. I made a record starting in 2006 that took about 10 years to record with Glenn Campbell, Mavis Staples, the Blind Boys of Alabama, Jacob Dylan, Robin Zander from Cheap Trick. All these singers were singing over ambient versions of American folk music, and it's called Uncommon Folk. So it was made in conjunction with the SPD, Sensory Processing Disorder Foundation, to sort of downregulate and relax people. So we kind of created it to raise awareness for SPD, which has just been admitted into the DSM manual, which is like the manual for psychologists, psychiatrists, and it's called misophonia now, the condition. But basically, it's for people that have a condition where they hear something and it raises their cortisol, or it triggers their fight, flight, or freeze response, and they cannot downregulate. And we've found that music, after 13 minutes of music, they found actually scientifically, you'll be able to relax people, and bring them back down to a normal state. So,
oh, that's incredible.
Interesting. Yeah. Met a lot of interesting people in New York. It was all done out of New York City and Long Island and Hamptons and different places. So met a lot of people. So hopefully the Glenn Campbell song's out. The Mavis Staples song is ready. And there's probably 12 or 15 more songs that are ready for release. So hopefully that'll come out soon as well.
I'd like to thank Stuart for being on the podcast. Look forward to new releases from him, and be sure to check out Summertime by the Tea Party. For questions, comments, suggestions for a guest you'd like to hear on the podcast, send us an email, allaboutthesongpodcast@gmail.com. Our website is www.allaboutthesongpodcast.com for past episodes. We are at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, we are there. If you could rate and review, leave a comment, that would be absolutely fantastic. On video, we are at the Sounds Like Songs Network. If you could subscribe, hit that notification button, I'd love you forever. This has been, I don't know how many episodes we've done now in lockdown. I'm going to say it's about 60, which is I'm going to pat myself on the back. We've done about 60 podcasts in a province that has not had a show with a person at. There's been not a lot of music going on, but the things that are going on, we want to continue to highlight. So if you're hearing of any really cool musical things going on, be sure to send us a message and let us know. We'll try to get them on at a podcast. We want to continue to support and highlight artists at this really difficult time. And we are looking forward to, the one day when shows and tours are put out. We are also looking forward to doing in-person podcasts. We're not there yet with provincial measures, but we're getting close and we have some great ideas. So look forward to some in-person outdoor episodes, hopefully this summer. So for Stuart Chatwood of The Tea Party, I'm Michael McDonnell. Episode 137 of All About the Song is in the books. We'll see you next week. Connie says, see you next week.